this is a big lesson I think that people have to get is like something that feels very normal to you but doesn't feel normal to other people is a big signal.
Hi, and welcome back to Careers 2.0. My guest today has been on a fascinating journey from being a pastor to pro marketer to a successful content creator. But our conversation is not about finding your calling or making a quick buck online. It's about consistency, it's about building a community, and it's about creativity, which my guest today has a lot of. Ev Chapman is a person of endless ideas and endless creativity, but powered by very strict systems. There is a lot that we can learn from her, so let's jump right in. All right, we will get to all the creative stuff and the processes because that's the most important. But I really want to start with actually your day job. So
Yes.
because you mentioned on Twitter, in your Twitter bio, that you made over 65K in digital product, and that's all your side hustle. And you're proud to say that you still do it while maintaining your full-time job, and you love it, which is great.
Yes.
What kind of work allows you to do that? What kind of work allows you to have the time and the flexibility to actually maintain such a profitable side hustle?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, so I work in marketing and I work with health and fitness businesses as a coach to coach them how to market their business. So we have a coaching program and I do a lot of coaching during the day and kind of teaching around marketing. But I think that the big shift for me was COVID. In that we went from working in an office, I went from working, like long hours, commutes, all of that, to working at home, not having to commute, an hour to work every day, and kind of just having a bit more time to be able to put into online and creating online.
Do you think that the security of the full-time job that we all looked after, especially in the health and fitness, right? Like the whole industry for a while was a bit shut down. Did it make you think that's not as secure as I thought it would be?
Exactly that triggered me to say, everything that I thought was secure in life is actually not as secure as I thought it was. And I think a lot of people experienced that during COVID. But I saw a whole industry shut down in 24 hours. And I was like, I don't even know how this happened. And, in Australia, we had some strict lockdown, things that happened. And so it caused me to think through, well, okay, all my eggs are in this one basket, full-time job. But if that went away tomorrow, and I never thought it would, that's just, I think that everyone was in kind of a pretty secure place. And then you go for this big, really life-altering thing, and I think the whole world kind of went through it, and you realize, okay, life is not as secure as I thought it was. I need to diversify. And that's really where I thought, okay, I need to go all in on doing something for myself, whether that turns into something full-time or whether that's just, a side hustle that kind of builds, I've got this idea of building a portfolio of things. So I don't want to go into anything full-time ever again. I want to build an actual portfolio that if something falls down, there's still a couple of things that are on the go.
Diversified solopreneur, quoting Justin Welsh, my favorite, right?
Yes.
When you're talking about being diversified, I know that you have done a lot of different things. You dabbled in vlogs, right, for a year, which is quite amazing, that consistency. Can you tell me a little bit about how your presence online evolved? How did you find was it something that I'm going to try this and then adjust? Or more I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to try something completely else? How did you look at it?
Yeah, I think I've been on this journey probably for around 10 years. I think I've always wanted to create something. I've always wanted to put my voice out there, or it's just kind of an inner desire to do that. And I have tried so many things. I tried blogging. I've had maybe 3 blogs. I've started, I think, 2 podcasts. I did the vlog for a year. So there's all this stuff that I felt there were just different creative projects and nothing kind of stuck for me. I would like the longest I ever did something was a year, which was my vlog, right? And I thought, oh, this is great. And then literally like New Year's ticked over and I was like, okay, done with that. And like I'm just moving on to something else. And I think it's just really interesting. Like I think you have to find your thing. And for me, I always come back to writing. It's the thing that I can be the most consistent at. I really love it. I get enjoyment from it. And I can literally do it every day. And I feel like, like I want to do video. Like I'm much more into YouTube kind of in the last 6 months. But it takes a lot to like get a video out. Like you got to get ready, you got to do the script, you got to film it, edit it, and then there's all this stuff that goes into it. Whereas like I can sit down for half an hour in the morning and write something, and it's out there, and I could do that every day really consistently. So I think like as a creator, I think I was just finding my thing. I was finding the way that I feel the most comfortable and the easiest to be able to produce every day, and then from that I can take and I can create it into other kinds of mediums that take longer or take more effort to produce.
Let's say they find something that they want to try. When is the sort of cutoff point that you would say that you should try it for at least a month, a year, as you did, in order to understand? Because, of course, on one hand, we have passion for something. On the other hand, the routine and the chore, right? Okay, now I have to do it every day, or now I have to. When do you realize that this is the moment, this is the thing that I should stick with, and when do you should just grind through it sometimes?
There's always this dip, and I don't know if it comes at a certain point or if you can name like a time frame, but Seth Godin talks about it in his book The Dip, right? So there's always this certain dip that you go through, and I think that you've got to recognize that in the beginning things are going to be hard. So if you can go and recognize, okay, this first point where I'm feeling like I don't think this is the right thing for me, that's probably the dip. And if you can get through that and get back up, then you're probably going to continue doing that. But if you just keep kind of, if you keep like quitting in the dip, then you probably won't ever find your thing. I know when I first started writing, so I did Ship 30 for 30, which is like 30 days of writing and one atomic essay every day. It got to like day 14 and they like talk about this. They're like, you're going to get it, you're going to feel the dip, it's coming. And I'm like, oh, whatever. I like to write. Like there's no way I'm not going to like, literally on day 14, I was like, oh, I'm over this. I don't ever want to write again. But like you're in a community, keep writing. And then a week later, I said, oh, I'm doing this for the rest of my life. Like, so it's, every day is a little bit different. I think that being part of a community really does help. Mm-hmm. So if you can find people who are doing the same thing and going through the same thing, you can kind of listen for the signals together. That kind of helps.
You mentioned Ship 30 for 30. There are, I think, two things to this to me. On one hand, there is this challenge to challenge yourself to do something for 30 days. And then the second part is the community, right? The people who try to do, maybe write about the different thing, but do the same challenge. And which part is more important, the challenging yourself or the other people that support you in doing that?
It's a really good question. I think it's probably different for different people. I think some people are really motivated by the challenge. Like if you set them 30 days, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm not really motivated by that. I'm motivated by doing it with other people. So when I hear stories of other people or I'm here, okay, they did it, I can do it. So I'm definitely much more motivated when I can do things in a community. And I think that comes across as well. Like a lot of the things that I do are like in public. So sometimes I'm not always part of like a community doing it together, but I'll just announce I'm doing something. And so that gives me the accountability. I know people are kind of watching and that kind of thing. So I think there's something cool about like doing something in public, whether you do it with a group of people or you're just saying, this is what I'm going to do, and having that public accountability.
You mentioned also signal, and you talk about it a lot, signal versus noise, right? Can you tell us a little bit, what do you define as signal, and most importantly, how do you differentiate yourself, signal on social media from the noise?
Yeah, I think so. I think it all came out of the writing these daily essays and trying to figure out well which essay is kind of resonating with my audience compared to another one. And so I would start to look at kind of the stats around the different essays that I wrote. So how many people are liking it or commenting or that kind of thing. And so I'm looking for probably a couple of different things. I'm looking, one, for resonance. I think when we talk about signal, we're like, oh, what exactly is that? Well, I'm looking for did this resonate with my audience? And I can kind of tell that now through, the amount of likes something has got, or if it's got a lot of comments. That's kind of what I'm looking for there. So that's kind of one. And then the other kind of signal I'm looking for is kind of something a bit deeper, which you find kind of more when people comment on your posts and that. So I'm looking for those deeper questions, what do people want me to explore next? All of those kinds of things. I'm digging in. If ever you ask me a question on a post, I'm like, oh, okay, that's an idea there. I'm taking that and I'm gonna put that in. So much of my writing process actually just comes from listening to all of that, and it's actually noisy. It's not peaceful at all. There's lots of noise there. And I remember kind of going from those early days of writing where you would log in and you're like, oh, no one's liked this post. It's that. I still 100% remember those days, but I also remember this tipping point happening where almost every time I logged in, there was a notification. I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? So you just gotta, the more you go, the more you kind of hear those signals. But I'm looking out for resonance, and I want to know what's really resonating, and I just go in that direction. So I'm not one of those people who's like, okay, I know where I'm going in the next 12 months, 2 years, 5 years. I have no idea. I'm going wherever the resonance takes me. And that's just my mode of operating. It's been my mode of operating for the last 2 years.
Would you say that you're data-driven then?
Yes, I love it.
Spoken like a true marketer.
You should see I've got this big Notion board. It's got all of my, all the things I've written, every single tweet. And every week I look back on every tweet and I record all of the stats and I look for the things that resonate.
Manually?
Every single one.
Oh, wow. How much time does it take?
It takes me maybe 10 minutes. So I use Zapier. So I've got a little Zapier thing that puts all the tweets in, and then I just go through and I just record impressions, likes, comments, da da da.
To what degree would you say that a creator has to be a marketer?
I think it's a definite skill that is an unfair advantage. I think when I look at maybe some of the peers that have kind of come along, I also know that they have a little bit of a marketing degree or they've done a bit of marketing here. And so I think it just gives you kind of a step up, that you already kind of understand, but I'm still terrible at marketing myself. It may not look like that.
No, it doesn't.
I don't even have a sign up box on my website, for my newsletter or anything, because sometimes marketers get a really bad rap. And so coming into the creator world, I was like, oh, I don't want to be an annoying marketing person. I want to be a fun creator. And so I didn't do a lot of the marketing things that I know work. But I think that innately, because you're in the marketing world, it does help. But it doesn't mean that you have to, go and do a marketing degree or anything. I think there's so many different ways to learn marketing and learn different ways that you can market your business. And I try and do it a little bit differently than I would. I think it's very different to market a business than it is to market a personal brand. And so it's kind of learning kind of the differences between that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what the main differences are and what is the most important in building the personal brand rather than the professional one?
I think that when you're marketing a business, you need to be really clear on who you're talking to, your niche, your avatar, all of that. And you need to do that like from the start. You can't just be like, hey, we're just exploring here. Like it's like you have a specific service or product that you sell. You know who you're going to sell it to, and so you kind of have like a top-down approach, right? So you're like, this is exactly what we're going to do, and you need to go out strong with that. I think with a personal brand, it tends to build from the bottom up. So you can be explorative. You can, kind of go out there and say, hey, and like when I first started, I wanted to talk about self-care and meditation and kind of all of that. And it just wasn't resonating, right? So I just went in a different direction. Personal brands are more personal. So people want to know more about you as a person. They want to know more about, like people, I've got so many people reaching out to me about moving house and this. I'm like, I don't talk about that, but because people are invested in you as a personal brand. And so I think that you can pivot easier. I think you can talk about, maybe things behind the scenes a little bit more. I tend to talk a lot more about personal experience, showing people behind the scenes, all of that kind of thing, which I think is like the person behind the brand, rather than if you were a brand, you really kind of want to be probably a little bit more professional and kind of know where you're going first before you go out.
You're talking a lot about going where the sort of audience takes you or whatever resonates. How do you balance your passion versus the interest of the audience? Like, how do you balance, how far do you go into what audience expects, even if it doesn't even resonate with you yourself?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, personally, I probably wouldn't be writing about something that didn't kind of spark me anyway. So everything that I write about, it sparks me in some way. And so if the audience is like, well, I'd like to hear more about this and that, okay then. And the other thing you have to kind of put into perspective is like if you write, let's say you write about something and every time you write about it, like it really resonates with a lot of people, that's a real dopamine hit. And you kind of get used to following those dopamine hits as well. Like, whereas like I could go back and talk about meditation or breath work or something, there's not as much dopamine over there. So I think that tends to help you and motivate you. I think the second thing is that I write a lot for myself as well. Like, I probably write more for myself than I do what you see online. So I can explore my passions and explore a lot of that kind of through my personal writing and personal exploration.
Even if there is no outlet for it, like public outlet?
Yes.
All right. You mentioned YouTube, that you started around 6 months ago, going more into it. Can you tell me, where is your focus right now? Is it still on Twitter? Is it on YouTube? I heard a lot from YouTubers, the successful ones, saying that YouTube has this kind of longevity to it, right? So you make a tweet or you make a reel and they disappear. They after 24 hours or a couple days, they're gone. Whereas in YouTube, the content can be more evergreen. It can stay there for much longer. People can find it if it's well keyword positioned and SEO optimized. Is this something you're looking at? That's why you're more into it, or just personal interest in video?
Look, I think I've always wanted to kind of be on YouTube. Like, I think there is a big difference between reading someone's writing and watching somebody on video. There's a connection that happens. But I've also been on the Twitter content train for the last 2 years, and correct, it's like you put a tweet out, it lasts at most 24 hours. I mean, my tweets do tend to hang around for 24, maybe a little bit longer hours, which is very nice, but that's not a long time. I don't think that alone you can build on kind of these short form platforms. And so I want to build something that has more leverage, I would say. So it's kind of got, I I play around on a bit. Like Twitter is my signature platform. It's where I had the biggest audience, and it's also where I test a lot of ideas. So I kind of see it as a testing ground. I can kind of see what resonates, and then I can take those ideas and take those things that are resonating, and I can put them into long form content. Because the problem with long form content is it takes a long time. You don't know if it's going to resonate, that kind of thing. But if I can test ideas quickly on my signature platform of Twitter, it's less of a risk to create it into a long form, and I'm pretty much guaranteed that things are going to resonate in that long form platform. So YouTube is that. I also still invest a lot in kind of long form articles as well, like Medium, and that kind of thing. And so I kind of see like there's like the two. It's like you've got your short form where you can test ideas out, and then you've got long form where they can like stick around.
Can you do a little deep dive for your funnel? So, okay, you start on Twitter with testing ideas. That's probably more content than anywhere else. More let's say quantity than quality, and then see what happens. Can you run us down how this from that goes to long form, where the long form goes, and so on?
Yeah. So usually I will start out with a short tweet with some kind of concept. That will often turn into like an atomic essay, which for me is like an image on Twitter, 250 to 300 words. Really easy for me to get out. And now with long form posts, I'm wondering, do I use long form posts or do I still use the image? But I'm still testing and kind of wondering what to do there. So once I kind of have that, usually what I'll do is, and I kind of see content as it kind of goes up the ladder. So if an atomic essay hits, then I will often then write that into a long form post, which might go on Medium or on my website. Because for me, I have to write it first. So I'm like, when I do my YouTube videos, I've got to know the content really well, and I have to have written it first because that's how I process information. And once I've done that, I could talk forever on it. But if I don't go through that writing process, I find I'm just too clumsy with my words. So I tend to do, so from a topic essay, it goes into a long form article. And then usually from a long form article, I can turn that into anything. I can turn it into a YouTube video. These days, mostly I'm doing YouTube videos that are kind of more Tana walkthroughs. So they don't necessarily correlate like one-to-one. But like, for instance, I've got 2 courses. I've got Tana Fast Track and I just released the Daily Creator course. And the Daily Creator course is literally, the modules are from things that I've written. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't take me very long to actually put big things together now. And I've got a whole lot of different guides that I want to do this year and that kind of thing. And they all pull from stuff that I've actually just written online. And at each level, like, you know how you sit down to write like a 12 module course and you're like, oh, where do I even start? But like for me, I sit down to do it and I just kind of like just take from all the different places that I've written and different ideas I've got. And then it comes together pretty easily. So doing that at every level makes each level feel easy rather than a big course feel like a heavy lift. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, like I actually had the idea for Daily Creator kind of a couple of days after New Year's and I launched it in 3 weeks. Like that's how quickly I could put it together. But that's 2 years of writing. Uh-huh. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening, and then that can then result in something. It's like an iceberg if you think about it. It's like lots of stuff is happening underneath, and then it can just come together really quickly.
Do you find that audience first approach to creating content is the best one?
Well, it's the best one for me. I don't know if it's the best one for everyone, but it's definitely how I work. I just have this responsive nature. So like when something happens, I respond to it. Whereas like if you put me in a room with no interaction, I'd probably be a bit lost. I need that something to respond to. But I think other people, I definitely think other people are different to that. Some people just know exactly what they want and they can see it in the future. And so they're just working towards that.
But it did make easier for you, right? Because like the audience sort of informed the product that you have created.
Yeah.
You didn't start out with the product idea. You started out with the audience, the things that resonate, and that turned into successful products, right?
I think so. And I think, look, as someone who created without an audience for 10 years, it's definitely easier to create with an audience and create alongside. And, you know, I feel like I have a really special relationship with my audience because, you know, for some of them, they've come along from the very start. Like when I launched my first product and they bought that. Like I still have like a couple of people who are like early adopters of my first template who gave me really great feedback and that kind of thing. They bought every single product and they bought Daily Creator. And like, it's like, you know, there's just this special relationship that, you know, you just see somebody evolve and you kind of like building together.
Okay, that may be a very broad question, but how do you build those relationships?
I spend a lot of time just engaging with people online. Like, I think I do less now, which I'm just busier now. But I remember in that first year, like if you have a look at like some of the stats from the months that I was tweeting, like there's like, I think over 10,000 comments or something like that in a month. Like it's like, I don't know what else I was doing. Like I must have just been on Twitter all day, just like, and it was like this big playground. I remember it was, you know, it was just a vibe about it as well. And there was a big Ship 30 community that I was a part of at that time. And so I literally hustled the whole, like, I reckon that first year was just all about engaging on the feed, DMs, and then Zoom calls. I did Zoom calls like every week.
Okay, so can you tell me about the first experience of actually making and selling a product? Was that also a dopamine hit, or it was like a couple people bought it?
Well, it was a dopamine hit when I got paid. I had somewhere between 500 and 1,000 followers. I don't know how many exactly, but it was definitely less than 1,000. And I'd been writing for less than 60 days. Okay, so it's like most people are waiting for some magic number to launch their product. And I just think you're just waiting just for nothing. Okay, if you have resonance and you know that people are, you know, wanting something, I think that it's better to have a product out there. You don't have to have $1 million launch. Okay, you don't have to have your phone literally lighting up with Gumroad notifications. I've never actually had that happen. But I think that it's always better to have a product so that when people do discover you, they have the opportunity to go further rather than try and build this magic number of an audience and then say, hey guys, I'm going to launch something. Like you kind of miss that opportunity when somebody first discovers you. So I had, some less than 1,000 followers, been writing for 60 days. And every time I wrote about my system for writing, which is so meta, but anyway, people just ate it up and they were like, we want to know more. I want to know how you like, and these are people that also wrote alongside me and they're saying, how are you so prolific? I'm like, you're writing as well. Like I don't. So there's something, and this is a big lesson I think that people have to get is like something that feels very normal to you but doesn't feel normal to other people is a big signal. So if people are literally saying to you like, how do you do that? Like, and you're wondering, like that's just a normal thing that people do. That's not normal. You should follow that signal. And so that's what I did. And I basically just put it out there. I said, well, if I made this available as a template, would you be interested? I think I tweeted it and people said yes. So I said, okay, I'm going to create it. And so I did a pre-launch and I gave myself, so this is one of the other things that I do is if I don't pre-launch it and put it out there and have like a deadline, I won't build it. So that's how I have to do it. So I put a deadline. I said, I'm going to release it on this day. It was like I gave myself 3 weeks. It's available for pre-launch. In the first 2 months, I made $4K from that product. So it's not bad for someone who had made nothing. Like, so, and I think I had about 50 people like buy the pre-launch of the template, which I was like, I always give myself like a minimum viable number. Like, okay, like if 5 people buy this in pre-launch, I'd be happy. And then like it was like, yeah, like, so it was quite a lot. And through the whole time, I just showed people what I was doing. And this is my whole marketing strategy around launching products is I just hate sales. I'm just like, I think it's just that marketer in me. I'm like, oh no. So all I did was I showed people what I was doing. So, hey, tonight I'm working on this with a screenshot. Or I did a quick Loom walkthrough and posted that. And so I think it's something that we don't do a lot is like this whole idea of show your work. And that's my whole marketing strategy around products is just show your work, show people what it is, show people what you're doing. And that kind of speaks for itself. Like you don't necessarily have to do sales.
I think a lot of people share your sentiment. I'm a sales guy by trade, so I love sales. I'm not with you on that at all.
Not against it. I actually have to do sales, so and I'm better at it now. But I think a lot of people just feel awkward about it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Also because sales gets a really bad rap.
Yes.
I think, and deservedly so. But a lot of people would like to sell without selling. So can you summarize your tactic to sell without selling?
Yep. So I think it's a mindset change. Okay. So you have to stop thinking about sales and you have to think of it as an invitation. So invite people to work with you, invite people to explore your product, that kind of thing. I think that feels nicer to people. I think the other thing that you have to do is bet on yourself. So you have to just stop with the imposter syndrome and all of that, just throw it out the window and say, I have a product that is going to help people and solve a real problem. And you just have to believe that, and you have to kind of step up to the plate and be like, no, I have a really good product that's going to help a lot of people. I can't not sell it. Like, I can't not put it out there. Like, and I think when you like that, and it does take a lot of confidence to kind of get to that point. I'm not saying it's easy, but you have to bet on yourself. That's kind of like mindset stuff. Tactically, I really do just invite people. So I try and get resonance the whole way through the process. I use my audience. I say, hey, I've got this new product I'm launching. Are you interested? Okay. And I get people, you do like the comment, right? Comment with a emoji if you're interested. So I try and build a bit of a list of people that I can then go and DM, talk to about, like send the link, that kind of thing. So I'll try and start, like a light version. Just grab a bunch of people that want your product. Usually then I put a landing page out and I'll DM those people individually. I'm not an automation girl, even though automation is my specialty in marketing.
Come on, you're using Zapier. You're like,
Okay, yes.
top 3%. So,
but when it comes to sales and when it comes to pre-launching, I never automate the DMs. I actually just hate that strategy so much because I think it takes away the personal energy of an exchange. It's just a weird thing that I have is like when I personally DM somebody, there's a personal energy exchange that happens, and I think that you get better sales if you do that. Like, and I've had to DM 200 people one time, like because I didn't set up an auto DM, and I thought maybe 20 people will buy this product.
I guess it's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem, so I'm not complaining, but I want people to know, like, sales takes effort. It takes energy. Like, you can't just be like, hey, here's the link. Like, go click and buy. Like I'm in marketing. I know people do not click on links. They just don't. Like there's just, you gotta have the conversations with people. You gotta, answer people's questions and, all of that kind of thing. So I think that's, as you're building, you also just need to be having those conversations with people.
There is this concept in marketing, right? Do things that don't scale. And I think it illustrates very well. Even if you have to do some things manually, it will pay off in the long run. Do you see that the scale has come to you? Like, doing the things that don't scale now, do you think you're reaching the scale with your followers, with more people interested? That's how you reach the scale?
Yeah, there's definitely an element of scale now, but I still love doing manual things. I just love it. There's an energy in it. And I think that you should do things that don't scale until you absolutely can't. Because they're the things that make a big difference. The only, like, when I train people in marketing automation, like, the only reason that we do marketing automation is because we literally don't have the time to be, doing all these exchanges of emails and that kind of thing. So you have to really hit a level where you're like, I actually cannot do this. And then I think you can automate things.
I would like to get into the nitty-gritty of your process now. You didn't come here to pitch anything, but I will do it for you. I'm a happy client of your endless tweet generator, which is, I think, fantastic. And the concept that you included there, that I think is the game changer, is remixing your existing idea. Can you tell us a little bit about it, how it works, and why it helps so much?
I think that we get more bored with our content than our audience does. Okay, so because we're creative people, so we think that, oh no, I've tweeted that once before, I can never tweet that again. And I think that like if you think about the amount of people that follow you, the amount of people in the feed, like, do you remember the tweet that you read last Tuesday? Probably not. And so I think that it's a really, and I think the other thing you have to remember is, like, the people that you know online, you know them for one thing, and they usually just talk about pretty much one thing, and they're saying it in 1,000 different ways, in 1,000 different times, and that's why you know them for that thing. They're not thinking, I think, like, imagine James Clear saying, I think my audience is a bit bored of the Atomic Habits thing. Like, he just nails it every time, and it's every time I open his emails, and I think, this is all brand new, fresh content. Like, I never am thinking, yeah, I heard that before. Like, you just don't. So I think that as kind of new creators, and, we're always, trying to be on this content train, but actually you should just learn how to kind of remix things and say things in different ways and that kind of thing. So what I do usually is I do this at kind of the end of the week. I look back through all of my tweets. I try and look for the ones that performed the best. Usually I do that. And then I then kind of say, okay, like, I might ask myself a couple of questions, right? So I might say, well, why did this resonate so much? And, is it the idea? Is it the format? Is it, is it what's happening here? And so I think you learn a lot from just reviewing and asking those questions of yourself. And then I push myself to take that tweet and write it in 4 different ways. I have, and I've collected over the time, a whole lot of different tweet formats, which help me, and different frameworks. These days, I don't use frameworks as much as I used to. I don't know if you saw my tweet the other day. I'm on a rant at the moment about tweet frameworks. But I think, like, they're a good start, right? So it's a good way to kind of rethink an idea and put it in a different way. The great thing about doing that is you can then, like, let's say you had one tweet, you remixed it into 4 different kinds of tweets, and there's different ways to remix, right? So you could remix into a different style or framework. You could remix, you could expand it. So let's say sometimes I'll tweet about something and someone will have a clarification or a question or that kind of thing. And it allows me to kind of expand or kind of, just tweak it so it makes a bit more sense. Other times I'll break something apart. So like break it into two and kind of go deep in one point and then deep in another. So I'm trying to look at this one tweet like a bit of a diamond, like, okay, what are all the different angles that I could possibly look at? And at first, that is a real challenge. Because like, well, how many times can I possibly say this? But the more you challenge yourself to do it, the easier it then ends up becoming. And the beauty of it is, like, let's say you do, I tweet like twice a day. So I have 14 tweets, I can remix them. If I remix them 4 times, I don't even know how much that adds up to, but it's a lot. And so then that's why it's called the endless tweet generator, right? Because you should end up with like an endless amount of tweets that literally you could just keep going for years. So that's kind of the concept.
You mentioned talking about one thing in 1,000 different ways. How important do you think it is to be known for one thing? How important is to sort of stay in your bubble and stay in your box? Is it in order to grow, and that if you don't do it, you'll have a tough time convincing the audience that you're the person about to listen to about that particular thing?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that if you have a look at the large creators, they are probably all talking about a singular thing or a group of things that adds up to a singular thing. So like I know like, a couple of people talk about being a creator, but also about journaling. Like it's like a little bit of an off topic, but it relates back to kind of that kind of overall umbrella. I still love to experiment with different topics. So because I also love to kind of read widely and kind of, I'm always going in a few different directions. So I think that sometimes you can bring in like a random thing and just kind of test it out and see, I wonder, like, what if I wrote about this? Or I also sometimes think about things in terms of like, can you find the intersection of something? So like, let's say like for me, I write a lot about like being a creator and creator systems. But maybe there's something, well, I mean, for a really practical example is I talk a lot about creative practice. And that just comes from like, I'm big in the wellness space with yoga and breath work and meditation practice. And I've kind of taken some of those concepts and kind of infused that into my creative systems. So if you can find the intersection between things, then sometimes you can end up with something unique.
Now, you have still the full-time job, and everything seems to come very easy for you. Maybe it's just a facade, I don't know. But what do you struggle with the most?
Yeah, it does sound weird, but I still struggle with consistency.
No.
I know, it sounds like, what do you mean? But like I think I probably also struggle with this concept, like like there's a lot of responding and going in different directions, but sometimes I just struggle with, well, where is this going? Like, what does this mean? Like, I go and talk to my friends in real life and they're like, what are you doing on this Twitter thing? Like, what is this?
How do you explain it?
They really bring me back to, just bring me back to earth for a minute. Like, I'm not like internet famous with them or anything. So I think, like I think sometimes it's just, just normal creator doubt. Where's this going? I often think like, and I think this comes from kind of the experience through COVID is like, is this going to keep going on forever? Like, or is there going to be an end to this? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the creator world is a bit of a gold rush at the moment. Like everyone's kind of making money, and it's like this big Wild West thing going on. I'm thinking, like, is this a thing that's going to stay, or is there some end point to this, and then I'm going to have to find something to do next?
Do you think the real life support and understanding of friends and family, do you feel like sometimes that the online world is its own thing and then it's somehow becomes not real if you don't have this support and understanding?
Yeah, I think for a year, my husband didn't really know what I was doing. Like, it wasn't until I started making some money, like, he was like, oh, wait.
That got him interested, yeah?
But, and I think that if you can connect with creators online, they will help and support you kind of in that. Like, they're just in that world. My friends have known me for a very long time. They know I'm always doing something. Okay. Yes, they supported me on the vlog and they watched it. So they always know Ev's up to something. They just don't really know exactly what that is all the time. But it's very hard to explain the creator world to people in real life. Like, we live it every day. But like, it's such a small subset of the actual world.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can get sucked into that vortex. Like, you can really just think like this is the whole world, especially during COVID, because you're not experiencing anything else.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to balance that with real life. And kind of, get out and kind of, experience kind of your real, I don't like to call it real life and online life, but like, in flesh kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about your time management? Because that's something really fascinating for me. Are you one of those 5 a.m. club people that you manage everything? Do you have batch content on a specific day? How do you work with creation?
Yeah, for like the last 2 years, I've been a 5 a.m. person. And I naturally am a morning person. I love to wake up and just get started. I don't know, actually just this year, I've kind of pushed that back to 6 a.m. So I'm getting a little bit more sleep. I don't have kids, so there's one less kind of responsibility there. But if you think about it, I'm up, around 6 o'clock. I don't clock into work till 9. So I've got like, a fair few hours in the morning where I can just sit and, do my own thing. And I don't commute anymore either. So it's like a lot of time to fill in. So I tend to do a fair bit of writing in the morning. So usually I'm up around 6 o'clock. I write for about an hour. And then I will spend another hour kind of possibly working on projects, doing stuff in my courses, like just kind of checking in on things. I find like, I didn't have courses before. So now I've got a little bit of admin kind of stuff that I need to do. I tend to not be good in the evenings at like deep work. So I can get in and do kind of light stuff and check in and do emails and that kind of thing. But like, I'm pretty not good at writing in the evening. So I don't. So I tend to use most of my mornings to kind of get that done. And then this year I actually have gone down to 4 days a week, and I have one content creation day, which has been a game changer, and has actually been able to commit the time to do some batch content. So that's when I do YouTube videos, I do reels, I kind of do a lot of that stuff on a Monday. And it's been so good.
Do you edit yourself? Do you have any sort of outsourced help, or is it all you?
I outsource it all now, which is, I feel really lucky, right? So, and for 2 years, I've done everything myself. And then this year, I just knew that I remember sitting down, I'd filmed a whole heap of reels and that. And the problem is that when you're a creative person, sometimes you like doing that stuff, right? So I actually love editing reels. It is one of my like favorite things to do. I love cutting it and like ins and outs. But like one time it took me 3 hours to do all of that. And I thought, well, what else could I be doing with those 3 hours to move other things forward? And so I decided I'm going to put like a call out there for a Reels editor. And I got one within an hour. Like, that's the great thing about Twitter is that I had hundreds of people inundate me with their Reels and all sorts of things. So now I have a Reels editor who is just amazing, and I just send off videos to him. He does them. And then I also have a YouTube editor. And I just find that investment has been because like that's not my main mode of communication. I love to write, and everything in my writing I do myself. But I want to spend more time there. I want to spend more time developing products and all of that. And so if I can, editing is one of the most time-consuming things ever in the whole world. And so I think that it's a good investment.
You mentioned things that move things forward, or things that moving the needle, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about how the things that move the needle change throughout your journey? So you mentioned that at the beginning, interacting with people, right, was the most important to grow in audience. How that thing that moves the needle changed, and what is it right now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Definitely, yes. In the beginning, it was all about audience, like just interactions, all of that kind of thing. I think now the things that move the needle the most are content, and the long form content. So I know that, and it's also the stuff that leverages. Like it's really hard to leverage one-to-one communication. That's really, you're in hustle mode, right? Once you kind of, and I miss that mode, and I miss interacting with so many people, but it's just hard. It's very hard to scale that. And so now I think the thing that moves the needle most is every time I create long form content, it really hits with people. So a YouTube video, a Medium article, newsletter. I'm terrible at my newsletter, but I do know it is one of the things that moves the needle. And definitely it's, well, and it's funny because you kind of see the peaks and troughs. So when I'm on point with content, I know I have no problems with sales. But as soon as I kind of like wane a bit, or, you know, other stuff's happening and I'm not as good and kind of like on content as much, I definitely see a drop in sales. So it's 100% content.
Do you see the difference of, let's say, quality of a follower or a subscriber on social media versus email subscriber that you constantly email with, or in terms of actual sales? I mean,
it's interesting. I think in the early days, my email list was probably better quality in terms of sales. So I'm not saying that they're not quality anymore. I just think I now the gap is bigger, right? So before I had a much bigger email list, or it was on par with my social media followers, whereas now I have a much bigger following on social media. So it's probably, it's disproportionate because now I can kind of put out a tweet, and pretty much I didn't email anyone about my daily creator course. I just put on Twitter. And that's
enough.
Not because I don't want to email my database. I'm just bad at
it. You mentioned that your first product made around $4,000. Now you're above 65K. Can you break it down for us? What brought the most money to your business?
Yeah. So I think like the first 18 months or so, I just sold digital products. So that's templates, guides, like stuff like that. Then I decided to launch kind of my first kind of course. And from there, I've kind of iterated on that a couple of times, and now I have kind of 2 courses. And so I have kind of, I think like one of the big mistakes I made towards the end of, or like middle of last year, is I had a lot of like lower price products and nothing higher. And so I was like grinding along, like getting sales, but I was like, I am not making enough money. And it was literally just that the product mix was a bit wrong. And as soon as I added in my Tana Fast Track course, like literally like my sale, I reckon, like I probably 3x'd each month, like just from doing, because, you know, if you're selling $29 products, you've just sell a lot of those to get to like a 10K a month or something.
Yeah.
But when you're selling a $150 to $200 course, much easier to get there. So I think I'd made a little bit of a kind of course correction there, and just made sure I have some different levels that people can buy.
If you were to go back in time, would you start with the higher ticket product, or you would say that thanks to the small ones, you've built sort of the audience and the trust in order to sell the more expensive ones?
Yeah, no, I think I would 100% just do the same as I did, is start with kind of lower priced kind of templates or digital products, and then move up to courses. The problem with starting with a course is that most people just take way too long to actually produce the course.
Yeah.
So it's like you spend 6 months trying to build this course, and then you can't sell any, and it's just too hard. So it's like, get runs on the board, like get those, so like launch a product that's easy to launch for you. So a lot of the time, like actually the easiest product for me to do right now is like just a workshop, like 90 minutes, put a workshop together. You can either host it live, or my last one that I did, I actually just recorded to camera, and people just buy the recording of it. And it's just so easy, like easy to put together, easy to record, send out. Like I'm a writer, and I've been trying to get these like written guides out, and I just can't. I'd just rather do a workshop now. Just talk to people. So yeah.
I'm interested to know about your view on the sort of future of online education. Do you see it as it be more concentrated around like virtual universities, Skillshare, Udemy type of thing, Maven, or rather around individual creators that are known for a specific thing?
Yeah, it's such an interesting space. I do think that creators will play a part. I mean, you think about it in terms of like let's think like offline, like not like if you think about universities versus like maybe a more practical course that you might do, like or a coaching program. Like there's two different reasons I think that somebody would do one or the other. You're learning a lot about foundations, about kind of very, large scale like stuff in university. Whereas like if you're doing a coaching program, it's very, very practical. So I think it will be kind of similar to that. Like creators will take over that coaching space, and kind of do more like, and I think creators kind of have usually their one thing. So it's like very niched in, like, okay, you're going to learn about this one thing here, and it's going to be very, very practical. And then I think you've got kind of your bigger online educators that can take on that more maybe university role, or that kind of thing.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned about hustling and the hustler vibe, and I really wanted to get your view on the sort of, we talk about it a lot, hustle culture. Is it something good that everyone has to do at the beginning of their journey, or is it something that can get you in the wrong path? Maybe also in terms of your own mental health. How do you look at it?
It's something I actually don't use the word hustle very often, because I do think it has a bad rap. Okay. And when I talk about like, well, I hustled in the beginning, it didn't feel like hustle to me. I was actually just excited to wake up every morning and like, I've got new friends today. I'm gonna go talk to this person. Like, I'm just honestly I was just so excited, and that energy just kind of, kind of takes you along on that ride. So I don't necessarily see it as like I didn't like buy into like the Gary Vee thing of like, okay, I'm going to go hustle as a creator. I just think like it was just real passion that drove me in those early days. And I think you need, I've talked about this in a tweet actually, is that I think there's an element of obsession in every successful creator. We're literally obsessed with what we do. So I wake up and I'm thinking about content. I wake up and I'm thinking about my audience. Like I can't stop thinking about it. Like I'm obsessed, and that can also have some negative connotations as well. But I think that I think that you still have to, and this is the hard thing when we talk about passion, because often our passion takes over and we stop listening to what we actually need and the balance we need. And that's different to hustle. Like hustle is like, I'm going to go out and like, you know, like get it. But like when you're passionate, sometimes you forget to listen to yourself because your passion is just like, yeah, just taking over. And so I think that's actually like a harder thing to overcome than the hustle culture. So sometimes you have to just like step back and say, look, I know I'm obsessed. I know I'm really passionate about this, but I should take a break, or like I should take a long screen break now. Like, you know, often we don't do that because we're just like why wouldn't you kind of just go along with your passion, really passionate about it? And I think creators are very prone to that. We get, and I think that's the creative wave sometimes happening. It's like creativity just comes in waves and you're just like, I'm just going all in on this. Like, I mean, I've had like days where I'm just like downloading, you know, creative stuff and I just can't switch off. That's very dangerous. Like, because that can also lead to burnout, even though you're doing something you're really passionate about.
It's not hustle if you love what you're doing, I guess.
I guess. I mean, I don't want to sound cliche. Like, I think every creator is obsessed in some way, and that can lead to hustle.
Yeah. All right. Do you mind if we do a little quick fire round? You know, like quick questions, quick answers, something maybe to throw in the middle.
Yeah.
All right. So, are you a team player or lone wolf?
I'm a lone wolf.
Take risks or carefully calculate?
Mostly carefully calculate. Sometimes I take a risk.
Mobile or desktop?
Desktop.
Who inspires you most?
Like ever? I'm going to say my dad.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would love to be a marine biologist. No,
I love that answer. What is an underappreciated business tool that you couldn't live without?
I don't know if it's underrated, but Loom is a definite one.
What's your productivity life hack among the thousands that you have?
Listen to yourself.
And lastly, what does success mean to you?
I think it is following the path that you set and not that other people set for you.
Beautiful. Maybe a little bit cliche, but so true. So thank you for that. And what's next this year for Ev Chapman? Do you have like a revenue goal or followers goal or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think I might put this out at some point. I do want to make 100K this year, which is a big goal for me. And usually I don't set those kinds of goals. So it's very different for me to do that. But I think I found the confidence last year, and I feel like I know the game plan and I can do it. So that helps me to kind of set that goal. And I think I've got a million ideas that I'm going to launch this year. And I got derailed by a move and all of that. So I'm like super excited just to get back into flow. And I really want to build my platforms, build audience. I'd love to be really consistent with my newsletter this year. I say that every year. I'm terrible at it. So those are some goals, but there'll definitely be products, there'll definitely be launches, and there'll definitely be content.
Do you see yourself in a short term leaving your full-time job for that side hustle to become full-time hustle?
It's really hard to say.
Your boss won't be listening, so you know.
He does listen sometimes, but he's great. No, I really love it. I get a lot of just joy from my clients and all of that, but I also know that you can't always you can't have it all. Like I wish you could. But sometimes, things just evolve and happen. So I think, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to become a full-time creator.
Yeah.
I'm putting that constraint on myself because I don't really want another full-time job if I leave my full-time job. So I want to leverage and kind of build something that doesn't necessarily have to be full-time.
Otherwise, you will unavoidably stumble upon some burnout, and that's best to avoid, right?
I think so.
All right, Ev, thank you so much. I think I'm wishing you the 100K, but I think it's like it's not really a goal; it's a prediction, I would say. Knowing your work, so
thank you so much for the vote of confidence.
Absolutely, yeah. And thank you so much for your time today to join me.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been so fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I know I did. As you can see, it takes time. But I feel like if you give yourself the time to experiment, but to remain persistent in it, then amazing things can happen. Please join us next time when we talk with another creator building their career 2.0. I'll see you then.